There we go. There we go. So working. It's early in the morning. It's 5 a.m. here. 11 a.m. there. So there's it's a shit ton of news, and when there's a shit ton of news, we do these lives. Usually I do them later on, so we're gonna have a whole nother crowd here, I think. But I can't do them anymore, and I can't do them later on because my son's here. So it would just be super late by the time I did it. So, it's 8 p.m. in Australia. Oh my God, 8 p.m. there, 5 a.m. here. Huge time difference. All right, so we got a bunch of news. It's a shit ton of news. What's going on, Astro? So the judge for Paul Crosby and Gerard Cruz, they've both been charged with the murder of Keene Mulready Woods at Rathmullen Park in Drogheda. That's going to be held in a non-jury court. So I'm thinking that this is, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not there. I don't really understand the system too well yet. That's going to be that kangaroo court, right? Correct? And I wonder what the conviction rate is for those courts. As we know, a lot of stuff can fall apart, especially in Ireland. A lot of stuff can fall apart, especially in cases like these. I don't know what kind of forensic evidence that they have. They did, as soon as they found the torso, all of a sudden all these charges started coming out. And before then, too, Gerard got charged before the torso was found. And I think there's one other man who's charged with withholding evidence, correct? Or is that Gerard? But I think the Gardaí were relying on finding that torso. So I'm wondering what they found, because there was reports that it was found in a bag, and the bag allegedly belonged to Robbie Lawler. I don't know how true that story is, but we'll see how this whole trial plays out. With the court system there, though, I don't know. I'm gonna have to. You gotta kind of hang back and wait, because it's not gonna be it's still not gonna be an easy conviction. But I'm wondering what they found. Obviously, the Boylan brothers, they're on the run. Paul Crosby's by himself, pretty much. Robbie Lawler dead. And then, speaking of Mr. Big, who is a part of that whole feud as well, there was some new news on him as well. I guess he was warned by Gardaí that he's at risk of being murdered. Now, Mr. Big is usually a guy that kind of hangs off in the background. He's a pretty intelligent fella. He's just kind of like I guess you could kind of say, like the Kinahans in a way. He kind of stays in the shadows. He's implicated in a lot of murders. I did a video on him as well that you guys can find on there, as well as Paul Crosby. And the Paul Crosby news really ain't that big. It's just that he's going to a non-jury trial, which makes the conviction more likely, I guess you could say. But don't get your hopes up too much. We all know how the court system works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For this case, maybe for Keene Mulready Woods, since the murder was so brutal, we're probably most likely there's gonna be a conviction out of this, but we'll see what they got. So Mr. Big, they came out. He's involved in a lot of murders, including he's been implicated in, I believe it was the murder of Alan Ryan. And I think there's an old story about Mr. Big and Alan Ryan meeting at a bar. And if you don't know, I think Alan Ryan, he was pretty much taxing drug dealers in the area, is what was alleged. And Alan had poured a beer on Mr. Big's head, telling him to go fuck off and that he wants his money. Well, then he gets killed. So I'm not sure what exactly he's at risk or who's after him. It could be a number of people. There's also the murder of Robbie Lawler, which has been implicated as Mr. Big put out money for that as well. So, I mean, the news story right here, it just says, so here, let me share it with you guys, just so you guys could get a better look. We've all read these, we've all seen them, but I guess we'll go through it again. And I know nobody wants to come on for the gangland stuff, but the last subject that we'll be on with Guardy's new powers, I do want to bring somebody on to kind of explain the whole situation better. So it just says right here, Mr. Big, Dublin godfather of crime at risk of being murdered, Gardy warned. He's one of the most intelligent, ruthless gangsters in Irish criminal history, whose gang has been blamed for at least 16 murders in just over 10 years, but someone is trying to kill him. And the thing about Mr. Big, he's never really been convicted of anything. They've attempted to convict the person that's believed to be Mr. Big in a previous tiger kidnapping, but that never came to be. He ended up getting out of that. Even though, you know, there's fingerprint on pizza boxes and stuff like that. And they still couldn't convict the person who's believed to be Mr. Big. Other than that, the CAB has raided the person that's alleged to be Mr. Big's house as well. But nothing since then. He's pretty much, you know, untouchable. He's super careful to avoid Gardy so far. It just says, so one of Ireland's most dangerous gangsters has been warned by Gardy that he's at imminent risk of being murdered. Dublin Live has confirmed that detectives served the Dublin godfather of crime, dubbed Mr. Big, with a so-called GIM form in recent days. It says guard information messages forms are only given to someone when Gardy believe there is a serious threat to life. And detectives believe a rival crime boss is now gunning for the mobster. It's understood detectives did not tell the mobster, whose gang has been blamed for at least 16 murders in just over 10 years, who was trying to kill him. And it's also understood the criminal showed no reaction when he was given the form, but sources have told Dublin Live that detectives fear he will now go on the offensive. He no doubt knows more about the threat to him than Gardy, who served him with the GIM form. It's in his makeup to fight rather than run away, so you can expect some heavy reaction from him pretty soon. He'll try to neutralize the threat. He won't take this lying down at all. It's thought the threat may be connected to his involvement in the Drogheda gang war that saw him involved in the murder of Robbie Lawler in North Belfast in April 2020. He became aligned to the anti-Lawler faction in the feud after Lawler gunned down his pal Kenneth Finn in North Dublin in March 2018. I don't know why they say he became aligned with the anti-Lawler faction. Okay. Mr. Big got Lawler killed in revenge for that, but also because he feared the killer was planning to murder him next. Gardy believed the gangster is heavily involved in murders, tiger kidnappings, and the illegal drug market is well on his way to being the most important criminals in Ireland. His gang is in the frame for a string of murders, including dissident Republican brothers Alan and Vincent Ryan, as well as Lawler. Says he has formed a close alliance with the drug cartel run by mobster Daniel Kinahan, and even sent a key bagman to Australia to help the cartel launder money there. Gardy also believed Mr. Big is setting up his own cocaine smuggling network by sourcing cocaine directly from South America. Sources say Gardy, who had been monitoring Mr. Big, who is in his early 40s, believed he is one of the most intelligent and ruthless gangsters in Irish history. It's understood he became close to the Kinahan cartel after he killed Alan Ryan in North Dublin in 2012. Ryan and his cronies have been extorting cash from criminals all over the city, but Mr. Big refused to pay. The dissident held a gun to a female relative of Mr. Big's head, and Ryan threw a pint of beer over him during a tense meeting, but he refused to buckle. Instead, he got his hitman to murder Ryan. Gardy believed Mr. Big then teamed up with the cartel to murder Ryan's brother Vincent, and the reason why he murdered Vincent was because they believe, allegedly murdered Vincent, was because they believed that he believed that Vincent was ultimately going to come for revenge as well for the murder of his brother. It's understood that the Kinahans targeted him because they wrongly suspected he helped provide the Kalashnikov rifles used in the attack at the Regency Hotel earlier that month that left David Byrne dead. Mr. Big then became involved in a Kinahan drugs scheme in Australia. He sent his key bagman to the country to help launder funds for the cartel. The gang was smuggling cocaine into Australia and thousands of birthday cards. The scam saw the gang packing small amounts of high-grade cocaine behind oversized age badges on birthday cards. They then sprayed the card with deep heat pain relief spray to kill the scent of cocaine from sensitive custom machines and sniffer dogs. Deep heat pain relief spray can kill off the scent of cocaine. I did not know that. And now you guys just learned something. You guys just learned something right there. It says the scam was finally smashed in 2018 and several people arrested, but not before it had earned the cartel at least €1 million. Sources say Mr. Big's bagman helped launder the money and get it back to Ireland. Mr. Big also sent the same man to South America to source his own cocaine for sale in Dublin. Gardy received intelligence in 2018 that Mr. Big has been sending his trusted aide on repeated trips to the continent. And we'll bring up South America here pretty soon because South America is going to be important. Remember that. Gardy believed Mr. Big is ramping up his cocaine business as he sees massive profits in it. The man he sent to South America lives a lavish life on the back of his work for Mr. Big, but is now a major target from the CAB who are investigating his wealth. But Gardy believed he and Mr. Big have salted millions away from their criminality, and the cash is hidden at home and abroad. So they believe it's somebody connected with Robbie Lawler, I guess. The South America thing is new to me. I didn't know that, Mr. Big, I thought this was going to be eventual anyways. If there is an alleged Kinahan connection, eventually you want to go off on your own, right? And Mr. Big would be the guy to do that, I guess. He is one of the more intelligent guys around. You don't see him recording stuff. You barely see any pictures of him. You haven't heard anything from him since the Tiger kidnapping. There's very rarely that's the person who it's alleged to be, right? So him sourcing his own cocaine now, we're going to see how that goes with the Kinahans as well. Like, once you go on your own, you're kind of stepping on other people's toes. And him going on the offensive, yeah, he's going to go on the offensive, but we'll see how big that goes and who that's involved with in the coming months. I'm sure we're going to hear more about this later on. The other one is Fat Freddy. And I did do I think it was the Kremlin-Drimnov feud. So if you want to learn about Fat Freddy, there's a lot about him in there on the Kremlin-Drimnov feud. Fat Freddy Thompson, he's in trouble again after flooring another inmate inside Ireland's toughest jail. The murderer is facing an internal disciplinary process after he knocked out a criminal in an exercise yard of Portlaoise Prison on Saturday evening because the other lag had been taunting him. And Freddie Thompson, he's been trying to appeal his sentence and doing this and that. So far, nothing has really, I don't think he's ever going to get out. Kinahan cartel killer Freddie Thompson is in trouble again after flooring another inmate inside Ireland's toughest jail. The Star has learned that the murderer is facing an internal disciplinary process after he knocked out a criminal in an exercise yard at Portlaoise prison because the other lag had been taunting him. Says that the other fella got in his face and Freddie put him down pretty quickly. Sources revealed Thompson attacked criminal Roy Miller during a confrontation in the yard of C Division in the prison at around 7 p.m. Insiders reveal Miller from Cork City approached Thompson and taunted him that he was not going to be the main Kinahan man in prison. So there's Kinahan workers now battling for leadership in prison. Saying they covered it in deep heat. Did you know when the BBC take their filming equipment, they never have the equipment scrupulously like other export and import good inspection? Supply and demand, the people want Coke. So it says about 10 members of 43-year-old Daniel Kinahan's drug cartel are locked up in the Supermax jail, but Thompson, who is serving life for a feud murder, is by far the best known to the public. Despite that, 34-year-old Miller, serving 5 years for stabbing a pensioner in a burglary at a victim's home in Christmas 2018, decided to taunt Thompson in the yard. Miller was laughing at him and was saying that he was not going to be the leader of the Kinahan outfit in prison. He got up into Freddie's face and Freddie gave him a few digs. He knocked him to the ground and the other fella had a few facial injuries. Thompson will probably be able to claim that he was acting in self-defense. Both Thompson and Miller have been served with so-called P-19 forms and the start of the disciplinary process in prison. But sources said the most serious punishment for both men would be loss of jail privileges. Thompson was convicted in 2018 of the July 2016 gang murder of ex-criminal Dathy Douglas in Dublin City. He's expected to spend at least 20 years behind bars, but is not serving his time quietly. In March, a TD called for a full investigation into claims by Thompson that a group of prison officers in Portlaoise were intimidating other staff there. The allegations were made, who called for immediate action into the claims. So, Freddie Thompson still putting up a fight in prison. Obviously, I guess he's running whatever wing he's at in Portlaoise. There's always going to be people battling for leadership in prison. If you've ever been there, don't go. If you haven't been there, don't go. If you've ever been there, then you know how it is. Good morning, Lee. Good morning, Lee. You can make more money slinging in jail than on the out. It's different kind of payday if you have a prison on lock. Yeah, that's true. I would rather have the death penalty than life in prison. Me as well. Billionaire Boys Club. Supply and demand. The people want the Coke. The people want the Coke. All right, so Daniel Kinahan, this is the big one. And this goes deep. Trying to figure out where I should start on this one. So it says Daniel Kinahan's wedding at the 7-star, and it seems like that wedding was a focus for a lot of people. It was a point of investigators piecing together evidence from an underworld supergrass and secret text messages unscrambled 6 months after the nuptials. The party in May 2017, attended by friends and associates of Kinahan, and this is on the Sunday World, as well as other senior underworld figures, happened as Dutch police began to investigate claims by a witness called Nabil B, who linked underground monsters Ridwan Taji, Ricardo Vega, aka El Rico, caged assassin Nafal Fossi, an Italian Camaro boss Rafael Imperial, who have attended the festivities. So, I mean, a lot of people think that, a lot of people say that Daniel Kinahan, they always say, like, he can't be implicated in anything. Man, after doing all the research and everything, there's phone taps, there's this, for example, the wedding. There's just too much surrounding Daniel to say that he's not involved in anything. So Ridwan Taji, there's a big trial going on in Amsterdam for him, and we'll see what comes of that. That one's a huge one, and now they're adding this Italian boss, Rafael Imperial. So it says 6 months later, PGP, pretty good privacy messages, discovered on a server in Canada, provided the hard evidence that sealed the alliance of the super cartel, suspected of moving almost $30 billion of cocaine into Europe, which is now being used in the trial of the century in the Netherlands. So the Ridwan Taji trial is very, very big. And also these PGP messages, basically what they were doing, and if you go to part 1 of the Kinahan Hutch one, the new one that I did, it talks about these PGP phones, and the phones are connected to a server so these ones are connected in Canada, but I know that previously they've had phones that were connected in Holland through a server. And basically what that does, it just makes it harder for investigators to see to get those messages per se, that I guess they would have to go directly to the server to get them. Obviously they figured out ways, but Daniel and Christy, being the smart guys that they are, they're not going to talk business over the phone anymore, especially after Operation Shovel, which happened in Spain. The messages aren't going to be incriminating. So later on, I guess, in these, through all of this, through these trials, we'll see what kind of evidence they exactly have and the conversations that were going on between people. So it says that so basically on the Crime World podcast, it says that they explain how the wedding could have been dismissed on its own as little more than evidence that the players, including Kinahan, knew one another. But together with the phone hack and claims by Nabil B, it has become a significant piece of the jigsaw of an incredible boom period in the underworld, which turned individual gangs into a narco force like no other. The Marengo trial, currently underway in a courtroom known as the Bunker, is the biggest ever conducted in the Netherlands and is centered on Taji, arrested in Dubai in December 2019, and 16 of associates, all accused of 6 gangland murders. And in Taji, they actually brought him in on a fucking helicopter. That's how crazy serious this court case is that they're making sure that Taji does not get assassinated. Taji, they've been bringing him in on a helicopter. I mean, he's got fucking security galore at this, and as you can see, they're calling this courthouse the Bunker. So they're making sure that he gets convicted for this thing, and they're making sure that the evidence gets put out there. In a separate trial, El Rico, the Chilean, has recently been convicted of operating an assassin ring and laundering money. While he has received an 11-year sentence, Mies explains that further charges may follow if Chilean and Dutch authorities can agree on extensions to the original extradition document that saw the criminal arrested in Santiago as the major investigation continued. Under Dutch law, and at the time of his extradition, charges of murder could not be brought, but that may change in time, he says. In recent weeks, reports of the Netherlands have indicated that Nabil B, once part of Taji's mob, has stopped talking and is now in a standoff with authorities over his safety and security. He has already lost a brother and his former lawyer, Derek Weersum, who were both assassinated in the run-up of the trial in an effort to derail the justice process. He has complained that his girlfriend is not being afforded enough security as he is due to give evidence at the Marenga trial. So this guy right here, he's pretty much snitching on Taji. Taji figured out, since Taji couldn't get him because he had a lot of around-the-clock security around him, Taji went after his brother. He killed his brother. Then he ends up killing his lawyer as well in an effort to get him to shut up. Obviously, it's kind of worked because he's saying he ain't going to talk unless his girlfriend gets extra security now. They said, however, according to Meese, this may not be critical to the case as PGP messages accepted as evidence that convicted El Rico are also being used in Marengo and will likely be enough to seal the fate of the so-called Macro Mafia. So basically, it looks like they don't even need evidence from him now after they cracked this server in Canada. The investigation really started running when Nabil B handed himself into a police station in early 2017. He said that his life was threatened and he wanted to talk to police about the underworld killings. The story behind that was that he was involved in organizing a couple of them, and in one case, the wrong person was killed. It seemed that they made a mistake during the shooting, which seemed to happen a lot here in the Netherlands in the past few years. The issue was that the person who got mistakenly killed was a member of the known Dutch-Moroccan crime family in and around Utrecht. Nabil B knew him personally and knew his family, analyzed, so he decided to talk. This is the beginning of what we know as Marengo. He gave a statement between January and May of 2017. Later on, police captured a huge amount of information on PGP devices after two servers were discovered, one in Canada and one in Costa Rica. That was the first big crypto communications catches that the Dutch did. In that huge amount of messages was a lot of evidence supporting statements that Nabil B had made and was hard evidence against Taji and his crew. On the run, Taji had attended the wedding of Kinahan, and it was later heard when lawyers traveled to Dubai to meet him, undercover police watched as Daniel Kinahan arrived at the hotel reception instead. Yeah, so Taji went to go meet, his lawyer came into Dubai, and he was going to go meet with his lawyer. So Dubai, their security forces were all sitting there waiting to pounce. And Lord and behold, Taji doesn't show up. Other than Taji, it's none other than Daniel Kinahan that shows up to that meeting. And later on, they get Taji at his house. And then the story goes, there was a video, but I cannot find it now. But Taji's lawyer is alleging that Dubai police beat the shit out of him. Like, just beat the brakes off of him. And they were asking him, how is Daniel Kinahan? They were asking questions about Daniel Kinahan as well. So that just tells you that Dubai police are the walls closing in on Daniel Kinahan right now, and a lot of these big dudes, and especially with Taji being, going to the Netherlands and them being able to get him from Dubai. Will Ireland be able to get a hold of Daniel Kinahan? It's not likely because they don't have an extradition treaty. But if the Netherlands has enough evidence, and let's say that they have evidence in these text messages, who's to say that they're not going to go after Daniel Kinahan once this trial is done? Which, if they do, that could be a bad thing for Daniel because ultimately he can be extradited there. So we'll see how this whole thing turns out. They said the manhunt for Taji only began in early 2018, 6 months after the wedding, and after officers had started to get a grasp of how Taji, Fassi, and El Rico had joined together as a national force in the Netherlands and as a global force with the Kinahan and Imperial, along with a Bosnian outfit known as the Tito and Dino cartel. And El Imperial, we'll get to him. We'll get to him because that's out of Italy. Imperial has long been an associate of El Rico, and they had worked together in the past. In 2016, Italian police found 2 stolen Van Gogh paintings on the kitchen wall of a house in the town of Castellammare di Stabia, near Naples, belonging to Imperial. They were returned to the museum. So Jesus Christ, this fucking Italian mobster had Van Gogh paintings, had illegal stolen Van Gogh paintings on his kitchen wall of his house. Van Gogh painting, they're actually having a Van Gogh exhibit here in Houston at the museum. That'll be in August. But Van Gogh is a pretty prominent painter. I'm sure his paintings are worth like up to $1 million, couple 100,000, a million, maybe more. That's crazy. He had 2 stolen Van Gogh paintings. Police realized that this was a layered criminal organization. The Dutch trio had teamed up in the world of cocaine smuggling and also in underworld killings. They all had their own business and drug lines, but they worked together. So they had their own organization, and together they are considered a Dutch national crime organization. On top of that, they were working as an even bigger organization with Kinahans and others. And I'm sorry, you guys, I can't see the chat right now, but I'm going to go back and check as soon as I'm done with this one. A total of 3.6 million messages were seized on the Enitcom server in Canada, and this provided evidence for the relationships between the key figures. You have a situation that they are at the wedding. They're seen together, but what does that mean other than that they know each other? But then they see the messages exchanged between them, and the investigators could really hear how and about what they were communicating. A much clearer picture has emerged about their dealings. The Marengo trial. So if you want to keep up on that trial, go to Nicolas Tallant's podcast, Crime World. I mean, it's actually a good podcast. As you know, as much flack as Nicolas Tallant gets, I've been kind of keeping updated on that podcast, especially with the Taji trial. It's hard to find anything, any updates in that trial other than what Nicolas Tallant says. All right, so let me go and check the chat right now. Mr. Big is Stevie. Don't you put me down like that. Yeah, we're early on this one. The reason why I went so early was because you know, I have my kid here now, so I'm not getting home till late. So it'd be like 1 a.m. by the time I went live for your guys' time. Does anyone know who is Mr. Big? You know, I would tell you, you can watch the Mr. Big video. It's up on the Gangland playlist. I'm so confused. Warwick Davis. He's an actor. If they get a English extradition warrant, that I mean, but I don't think England's doing anything about it would more be the Netherlands. In 1990, a Van Gogh painting sold for 75 million. Jesus. Or Van Gogh. Am I pronouncing it right? Am I pronouncing it wrong? I don't know. I've been listening to her podcast on SoundCloud too. Yeah, it's a good podcast. So now we're moving on. There's more news. And let me skip more to Daniel Kinahan. So as you know, that there was and I have the paperwork for this. Daniel Kinahan could have assets frozen if U.S. court ruling is enforced in Dubai. The Dubliner and others are being sued by boxing manager Moses Heredia, who is alleging that his top boxer Jojo Diaz was illegally lured away from him with a $100,000 cash payment. So Jojo Diaz, this boxer, if you don't know, MTK has made its way into America. There's actually MTK gyms in America, over by Arizona. I believe they did another one in California now. And Jojo Diaz was approached by MTK, and they pretty much took Jojo Diaz off of Moses Heredia. So what Moses is alleging is that he lost his boxer, and he claims that Jojo Diaz was under contract with him pretty much. And he claims that Jojo Diaz received a payment to leave to break that contract and go to MTK. So there's a lawsuit that was filed in California. I did a live on this a while ago. I think it's on one of the lives on the playlist. If you go back and look, where I kind of go through all the paperwork on this, where he's alleging, and really they're alleging Daniel Kinahan because they know that, I think they found the dirty laundry of MTK. They were trying to find a good way to attack MTK in the lawsuit. So they mentioned Daniel Kinahan, and they mentioned the criminality that he's involved in and stuff like that. in the lawsuit. So the big question is if the California judge was, because it's just paperwork for right now, but if the California judge accepts it, it could be a bad deal because Daniel would have to, he would either, well, MTK, they would have to have their lawyer show up. I'm not sure if Daniel himself would have to show up since he's mentioned into the lawsuit. In most cases of lawsuits, you are supposed to show up or have a lawyer represent you. Maybe he's going to go that route and have a lawyer represent him in that process. But you know, if convicted, yeah, they can seize assets, clear, and they can do it in Dubai. You know, because it's America. America's U.S. has a good relationship with Dubai, and I'm not sure about the extradition stuff, but they could possibly freeze assets. So it says that MTK and they allege that Daniel co-founded that, and others are being sued by boxing manager Moses Heredia. In submissions in the court in California, they allege Kinahan is continuing to organize fights for MTK boxers, which are steeped in money obtained from drug trafficking and money laundering. Although Kinahan and MTK have officially been served a summons in Dubai, so they've been served a summons. Well, that's crazy. So that means that the lawsuit was accepted by representatives of Heredia, have yet to respond, and there's no sign that they will. And if an upcoming arbitration in the California State Athletic Commission finds Diaz's contract, which does not expire until 2022, with his former manager remains valid, his lawyers will go for a default judgment against the defendants in the U.S. before heading to the UAE to have it enforced there. So basically what they would do is if Heredia was able to win this trial, they could enforce whatever, you know, money that he's going to win or whatever, they could enforce it at the UAE. Heredia's lawyer, Eric Montalvo, expects the commission to hold up the contract. Mr. Montalvo, an ex-Marine, told the Irish Mirror in a lawsuit, if you have a final judgment, then what you do, you take that certified judgment and go through a process. We get this over to Dubai, and then we file in Dubai court, and Dubai looks at it, verifies that it's legit, and once it's legit, then we can go to an enforcement action. He explained that the facts will not be contested as they have already been upheld in the U.S. So that means that the contract has already been accepted in the U.S. So it's all on to the UAE now. So this whole thing has moved on to Dubai, and Dubai is looking at the stuff and they'll most likely agree with the U.S. on those filings. He said the filing in another jurisdiction is tied to enforcement, not a review of facts. So the law provides that a court must accept the judgment of the original court and simply enforce the rulings, not provide an opportunity to collaterally attack the findings. The United States, fortunately for us, is one of the most recognized sets of documents you can get in the world. Our judgments are the most accepted judgments on the planet. And therefore, if we get a judgment in the United States, we go to Dubai if it wants to do business with us. Dubai needs to recognize the judgments, we recognize theirs, and they recognize ours. The Irish Mirror can also reveal that the enforcement process could see Kinahan's assets in the UAE seized or his bank account frozen to get the money the plaintiffs believe they are owed. So what were they saying? They were asking for $1 million. I'm pretty sure Kinahan could pay that easy. So as far as assets being frozen, I don't think they're going to freeze any assets. I think Daniel will ultimately just pay the $1 million. Mr. Montalvo or Daniel or the MTK, whichever, said that it's any assets to recover damages. So if it were in the U.S., then it would go to a U.S. court to do that. So basically, they're looking for the number. The number will be decided by the UAE court. The only thing this is it's been accepted by the U.S. court as being true. They moved it on to the UAE court. Now it's up to the UAE court to decide what they're going to do and if they're going to enforce those actions. But what we would likely do is go to Kinahan's $1 million mansion and have that seized or his bank account frozen so that we can get what's owed. I don't think that's going to happen. Exiled Kingpin Kinahan is being sued by Heredias along with MTK and others that they claim that illegitimate poaching of their boxer. Diaz became a world champion under Heredias before making the move at the start of 2020. In a submission to the California courts, the lawsuit states MTK itself is laundering the illicit proceeds of KOCG drug trafficking enterprise, the Kinahan cartel. And it says that Mr. Kinahan continues to arrange boxing matches that involve MTK fighters. These matches are steeped in money obtained through drug trafficking and money laundering. MTK then uses this money to attempt to bring in more fighters and arrange more fights so that more drug trafficking proceeds can be laundered through them. What appears to be a legitimate business. It alleges that MTK has broken the law with the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act by using the suspected ill-gotten gangs from the organized crime. And it states that how Kinahan, along with a number of gang members, are banned from the U.S. because of their activities. Kinahan co-founded MTK in 2012. Then, as MGM, before he stood away in 2017. However, the company itself last year admitted that the Dubliner still has connections to the firm as he advises some of the fighters, while its CEO, Bobby Allen from the U.S., also told the BBC he remains in constant contact with Kinahan. If the ruling in the lawsuit were established in Dubai court, it would pose a major threat to Kinahan's ongoing exile in Dubai. The gangster moved his operations from Spain to the Middle East in 2017 after the Kinahan-Hutch feud exploded following the Regency Hotel attack the year before, which he was the target of. There's no extradition treaty between the UAE and Ireland. However, Gardaí from the Drugs and Organized Crime Bureau have visited and liaised with law enforcement there. Separately, Mr. Montalvo took aim at MTK's management of Diaz, who has been stripped of his world title after he missed weight for a bout in February. He added, Jojo Diaz lost his belt, so that means the next fight he fights, he's not fighting as a champion, and therefore he doesn't make the same amount of money. The only reason he was making money was because of a contract that the Heredias had negotiated that said if he's a champion, he makes a different level of money. Mr. Montalvo says that he continues to fight for his client and is hoping to get around $2 million. He also told how he doesn't think about the possible threat Kinahan and his organization could pose him. He said, it's really not something I give great attention to. If people are unhappy with Montalvo in many different, if people are unhappy with Montalvo in many different ways, if he's got somebody to sniper me in my office, that's going to happen, and there's nothing I could do about it. Kinahan remains one of the Guard, Drugs, and Organized Bureau's top targets and is wanted for questioning here over a number of kill bids in his cartel onslaught of the Hutch gang. Following a BBC Panorama documentary on Kinahan's rise in boxing earlier this year, he released 2 statements claiming his innocence. The High Court previously accepted submissions as part of the Criminal Assets Bureau against his longtime ally Liam Byrne, that Daniel ran the day-to-day operations of the Kinahan organized crime group. Last year, the Special Criminal Court established that the KOCG carries out execution-style murders. And there you have it. So it looks like, man, so we got the case in Netherlands. We got this thing going on in the U.S., plus Ireland building up a relationship with Dubai police. Not looking good. I guess even if Daniel does go to Ireland, what evidence do they have to convict him? I really don't see a conviction happening. I'd see it more likely maybe in this Netherlands court case, because if Taji's put in a corner, you think he is going to just sit there and do his time? I don't think Taji's the type of guy to just sit there and do his time. I think Taji's going to do a whole lot of talkity, and it's going to be eventual. And if that happens, then Daniel Kinahan is screwed. But as far as, even if he was extradited to Ireland, I really don't see a conviction there or anything major, because if Spain couldn't do anything, plus, and then on top of that, give him his money back, give him $500 million of their assets back. I don't think it's very likely. So there's that. So let me go there. We got one more thing here, and then one more gangland thing. Senior Kinahan cartel member, wife and mistress laundered 1.3 million euro in cash, court told. Money used to pay for wedding at Druids Glen and Spanish holiday properties, as well as other gang members. Declan Brady, his wife and his mistress, laundered approximately $1.3 million in crime cash through transfers that included mortgage payments on a Spanish holiday property, a wedding at Druids Glens, and transfers to other gang members. The special criminal court heard on Monday. The court heard that the bar tab and room bills for 27,000 euro from the wedding were paid in cash, while both Brady and his wife declared no income to the revenue over the period in question. The non-jury court heard during Monday's sentence hearing that Brady, 55, who is known as Mr. Nobody, had laundered $418,654 in crime cash through multiple bank accounts. His wife, Deirdre Brady, had laundered $770,499. And another woman, Erica Lucas, who was described today as Brady's mistress, had laundered $196,864. Brady, the mother of Declan Brady's 3 adult children, transferred over $140,000 in organized crime cash to the Spanish bank account of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh over a 5-year period, the court heard. She also paid another $3,000 a month to her husband's Spanish mortgage account on a property in Cala d'Or. I don't even know how to pronounce that one, totaling over $138,000 between 2014 and 2016. The property has since been repossessed by the bank in Spain. The three-judge court has also told that Declan and Deirdre Brady were also paid $66,301 to the Druid Glen Hotel in County Wicklow for the wedding of a family member, and $27,265 of which was paid in cash for bar and room bills. Counsel for Miss Brady and Michael Bowman and his client was acting blind and in complete ignorance when she paid the rent on a property with her husband had shared with his mistress. Lawyers for Declan Brady, who pleaded guilty last April at the Special Criminal Court to hiding over $250,000 in euro in crime cash in the attic of a Kildare address, said that their client had taken responsibility for his own actions and expressed profound regret but for him taking the repossessed money, or for him taking the possession of the money, his 2 co-accused would not find themselves before court. Brady, the court heard, was taking orders from more sinister forces abroad. The Special Criminal Court also heard today that all 3 accused have since paid money to the CAB. Brady is already serving an 11.5-year jail term imposed by the same court in July 2019 after he admitted supervising a firearms arsenal, including an assault rifle and thousands of rounds of ammunition that had been stashed in a Dublin business park. On April 23rd last, Brady pleaded guilty to concealing cash to the value of $268,940 in the attic. On January 24th, 2017. He had been charged in February with a total of 16 non-scheduled offenses within the state between January 1st and January 24th. All the charges come under the Section 7 of Criminal Justice Act 2010 and relate to money laundering and terrorist financing within the state. On April 13th, that's when his wife ended up getting convicted as well. Additional pleas last April. Fiona Murphy, prosecuting, told the court that there would be additional pleas required from the 3 individuals when they appeared before the court for their sentence hearing. Brady pleaded guilty today on Monday to 7 further crime cash laundering offenses. Miss Brady admitted to 17 more crime cash laundering offenses. Lucas pleaded guilty to 5 more cash laundering offenses. And this whole laundering scheme, it gets really, really fucking it gets deep. You know, on the first part of the Kinahan Hutch, the part one, you can kind of see how deep that this money laundering scheme goes. It goes in, you know, allegedly this stuff gets pumped into MTK, but not only that, it gets pumped into, there's like food companies where they're supposedly, you know, shipping off pasta. You can guess what the pasta is. But there's money laundered through those companies. There's money laundered through Holland properties, Spanish properties, Irish properties. There's money laundered through Brazilian properties. There's a Brazilian villa that's owned by the Kinahans that allegedly makes a ton of money. There's investment companies. I mean, for cops and everybody to try to keep up with this, it would make my brain hurt. How bad how detailed and how spider web the shit is. And I think for Christy and Daniel allegedly, and through the younger brother, Christy Jr. Christy Jr. is the real genius behind all this. Is they made stuff. They pump so much money into so many different businesses that it's hard for Gardy or for Spanish, you know, for Spanish authorities or anybody else to keep up with the whole net, with the whole web of shit that money is being pumped into. And they're just pumping money into the companies, and the money that they make, that's clean cash right there. It doesn't really work putting it into the bank, as you heard from the Hutch one. You know, they just see that the banknotes come from this place, or, you know, it just never really works out. So you got to do it through some company or through property. You got to have assets. You got to have backing behind you. And so with all the property and everything, really, I mean, they could quit drug dealing and they'd be fine as a legitimate company if they wanted to. So there's that right there. This is the thing that I wanted to talk about right here. So I'm seeing that. So the bill hasn't been passed yet. It's currently going to be passed, right? Correct. So I'm gonna do the invite, and you guys can come on. Somebody who knows what's going on, please. Somebody who knows what's going on, and kind of explain this whole thing. So from what I understand is that if you don't let Gardy, if they ask for the password to your phone and you don't give the password to your phone to them, you can do 5 years in jail. Am I seeing that correctly? And that's major, because here in the U.S., you know, there's issues with iPhones. Most criminals have iPhones due to their privacy, and Apple will not release any passwords. They won't break the phone or anything. So the FBI, they have to go through other avenues in order to break the iPhones. And by the time that they do that, you know, who knows? As long as a criminal has access to the internet, you can erase shit off of your phone from another computer or from another phone. You can erase the history that's on that phone that they have. So they have to look at it pretty quickly. But it's a big privacy deal. You can't just fucking ask for a password and go through somebody's phone and see all their personal shit. So I could see where this, and this is it's really an invasion of privacy. So, all right, I'm going to send the invite right here, and you guys can explain what's going on. All right, so here's the invite. I know nobody wants to come on for the gangland stuff. This isn't gangland stuff right here, though. All right, there you go. All right, so there's the invite right there. Thank you, Mr. A. Thank you, Mr. A. $199. Elaine, how are you? Yeah, and the FBI, if you guys haven't heard about that, the feds, they believe it up to the fucking U.S. to goddamn and really, I don't know if you call that an invasion of privacy, but they fucking made a phone company with a server and allowed these criminals to use it for a while, and they were really just getting evidence from these guys. And I heard that happen in every country, or in every European country except for Ireland. You want to know why? Because the Irish criminals are a lot smarter than that. I just don't think Irish criminals, they don't really put their business out there like that. Some of them do. Some of them, not a whole lot of them though. Very few. Very few. In the U.S. now, if you're talking about gangs in the U.S., they put all their shit on Instagram. They flaunt it out there. Criminals don't last very long here because they're dumb. Then you get 6ix9ine. Yeah, and Hakan Aik promoted it. He must be feeling the pressure now. Of course, the common pigeon might go. The right idea. the common pigeons. Yeah, go back to using pigeons now. So there's the invite. Right, if no one wants to come on, I understand. So it says that a new policing powers bill, which could see somebody jailed for 5 years by refusing to give Gardaí their passwords for phones or computers, has been described as by legal and privacy experts as very concerning. It is concerning because it's a privacy deal. If somebody's not up to criminality, why should they hand over their phone for a bunch of cops to see? And let's say they got a mistress. Let's say they're homosexual. They're on Grindr or something. Maybe they have a wife and they're doing something on the side. You don't want the cops to see that shit. I don't know. But it is a huge privacy deal. So I see where they're coming from, and it is concerning because it allows Gardaí to just kind of do whatever they want. If they want to see your phone, you have to give them your phone, and they can look through all your messages and everything like that. The general scheme bill was the Gardaí Powers bill was published on Monday and will see sweeping changes made to the system of search warrants and detention currently used by Gardaí. It is very concerning. There are huge powers being created here. The general power of arrest without charge is being expanded massively. There is a power of detention for stop and search and a very broad power of seizure of items upon arrest. So when they're talking about the stop and search, that did not work out in New York very well. It largely put the crime rate went way down in New York, but at the same time, there was a lot of cops that were dirty, and they were actually doing stop and searches because here in the U.S., the cops have to arrest a number. Like the cops have to give out a number of tickets or make a number of arrests by the time their month is up because they have to keep up a quota. I know that sounds fucking ridiculous, doesn't it? They have to keep up a quota. So the cops will go out of their way to keep up that quota. And in New York, for example, with the stop and frisks, one of the things that they were doing is they were actually planting drugs on just innocent people and making these arrests and a lot of people. There was a lot of people doing a lot of years until those cops got caught. And you guys can find it on YouTube. I mean, it's always in New York. It's all because New York is the only place where you can do the stop and frisk. They can't come up like here in Texas. The cops can't come up to me and want to fucking search me. They have to have a reason. So I'd say, nah, go fucking get a warrant or fuck off. And there's really nothing they can do about it. They can get pissed off, but with the old cell phones nowadays, as long as you're videotaping and you're recording, the cops are going to be very, especially with the situations nowadays, they're going to be very careful. Now, back in the day, they probably would arrest you even though, but with the invention of the cell phone and video recording, it's less likely. Actually, it's almost not likely anymore. Like, if they want to stop and frisk me, they can't do it here. It's not a law here. So there's, if they wanted to come up and stop me, and I told them, nah, I'm not going to have you search me, and they asked for my my ID, and I say, no, I'm not going to give you my fucking ID because I didn't do nothing wrong. You have to do something. You have to be a suspect of something wrong, or extremely suspicious in order for them to do any of that stuff. And second off, they have to have a warrant in order to do any of that stuff. They can't just fucking stop and frisk you on the street. So if you deny them, back in the day, they used to get pissed off and they would just arrest you anyways, which is illegal. But nowadays with the cell phone, that's why everybody records now. When a cop starts asking questions, if they come up to you and they say, "Let me see your driver's license," or if they say, "Let me," they want to do a stop and frisk, and you tell them no, and let's say you're recording that, and they arrest you. You can take that to court and say, these motherfuckers had no reason to arrest me, and you can show them the video, and therefore the police department's going to face a lawsuit. Boom, I'm a millionaire. In New York, it's different, though. In New York, it is an invasion of privacy. Plus, they got the RICO cases. You just have to be suspected of being in a gang, and they can arrest you. And the feds in RICO cases, they have a 98% conviction rate. Whoever the other 2% was that got out of those cases, they're legends. But like you seen the deal with 6ix9ine. 6ix9ine, he got put up by a RICO case. He was facing 45 years for those RICO cases. They don't need any evidence. All they need is they need evidence, only a little bit of it though. They don't need any forensics or anything like that. All they need is text messages between you and the gang, or any ways that you're involved with the gang, and guess what? It's guilt by association. All of you guys are facing charges. All of you guys are facing the same charges. The stop in New York, it really didn't work out. It gave cops a lot of power, and the power got to their head, and they started putting drugs in people's pockets, and there was a ton of innocent people that were doing a lot of time. And some cases, those cops would be busted planting drugs years later, and Lord and behold, these guys that are doing 15 years for cocaine possession or anything simple are being released because that's the cop. That cop that was busted planting drugs was probably the cop that arrested them. So it will become a problem if that law is passed. It says the new bill seeks to expand the powers of Gardaí to have access to private communications in ways that have previously only been available under certain pieces of legislation. It has been described by the department as serving to modernize existing law and make it more consistent. Justice Minister Heather Humphreys said in the launching the bill that the law in the area of search and detention is currently very complex. Bringing it together will make the use of police powers by Gardaí clear, transparent, and accessible. Where we were proposing to extend additional powers to Gardaí, we were also strengthening safeguards, she added. Exceptionally weak on safeguards. The statement was disputed strongly by Dr. Conway, who said he proposed the bill as it stands is exceptionally weak on safeguards. There are 20 of them which are absent. The more powers you give the Gardaí, the more safeguards you should have, she said. That is correct. Adding that one of the more shocking absent safeguards is that the presence of a lawyer at an interview is no longer guaranteed. So, they're taking away the lawyer as well. So if Gardaí don't like how the lawyer is behaving, they can rid of him. That's not a good thing either. So, that's definitely not a good thing because they can crack somebody. But Jerry Hutch, the hardened guys, they just stare at a point in the wall and they just don't say nothing. But if you're held in a room for 48 hours, there's certain people that'll crack. It's happened here in the U.S. Did you guys ever watch The First 48? Doesn't work out so well for a lot of criminals, especially those that aren't smart enough to say, I plead the fifth, I want my lawyer. So Dr. Conway added that under the bill, a breach of law by Gardaí cannot result in either civil or criminal prosecutions is huge, as is the fact that such a breach does not affect admissibility of evidence. Jesus Christ. So if Gardaí, breach of law by Gardy. So if the Gardy have breached the law in any way, it's not going to affect the admissibility of evidence. So I guess that's kind of like America. Like if you didn't read somebody their rights, that would be a breach of law in a way. Therefore, any evidence of that case is inadmissible. And whatever they were trying to charge that man with, he's now being released from jail, and you can never charge him for that same crime ever again. So any breach that Gardy are doing, as far as the law goes, that's crazy. So the Irish Council of Civil Liberties will be making submissions to the Department of Justice, but said it is concerned about a number of facets in the prospective law. A spokesperson said that the ICCL took issue with the bill's provisions for seizing privileged information, while the fact that search warrants could be issued by guard superintendents as opposed to judges in exceptional circumstances is worrying, given those circumstances are not defined. So guard superintendents can now in this bill would be able to sign for search warrants instead of judges now. In special circumstances or exceptional circumstances, they're saying. It says Associate Professor of Law at UCD, TJ McIntyre, described the bill as a missed opportunity. It continues the practice which the Supreme Court has found unconstitutional of self-service search warrants, he said. In every case, the application should go through a judge. There is no reason why there can't be a scheme to do it urgently. He described the bill as quite worrying. It's taking a very invasive power, which is highly controversial in other jurisdictions, and extending it in a blanket way to all search warrants in an unjustified and disproportionate way. Crazy. Yeah. If you guys go in, just say nothing. Just stare at a point in the wall and don't say a goddamn thing. I know you guys don't have the fifth, but if you don't have the fifth, just don't say anything. Just stare at a point in the wall, and then they'll eventually listen to the Jerry Hutch, listen to the Kinahan Hutch part 2, and listen to what Jerry did. He stared at a point in the wall, and he didn't say nothing. Sometimes he was held for 48 hours, and you want to know what? The cops eventually gave up, and they released him. The fact that the cell phone thing, though, that's worrying. The fact that Gardy can now, that if Gardy were breaking any type of law or like search warrant or anything in any way, and that the evidence would be still admissible, that's insane. It's like it's really taken away a lot of rights for citizens, especially privacy rights. They can search and ask what I'm doing. Information, but why look through my phone? It's linked to every aspect, nothing exposing on it, but personal just seems much. Get a warrant, but no fine equals money. Yeah, equals fine and money. Yeah, that is it's a very big breach of privacy. We'll see if the bill. I don't think they'll pass the bill. Either that, or they're going to make some major changes. Maybe. Sounds like there's a lot of people within the government, and I seen even one guard, an older fella. He said he was a little worried about it himself. Yeah, and that's true. Has anyone ever actually done themselves a favor by talking? It's always used against you. Yeah. You never talk. Never talk. Anything you fucking say can and will be used against you in court. That's what they say in the U.S. They say you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and do will be used against you in court. So remain silent, say nothing. But the cell phone fact, that's a little different. Now, I could see, like, if it was something major, like if we're talking about, another feud where there's been a bunch of murders and maybe they've busted somebody and they needed to go through his cell phone for evidence later on. I could see, and you would have to get a warrant in order to do so. I could see that. But just random people or anything, or if you haven't really necessarily been doing anything wrong, and they just bring you in and they just want you to hand over your phone password. That's a it's a breach of fucking privacy right there, man. That's just and the warrant thing is a little worrying too, because what would be the exceptional stuff? I'm pretty sure they would abuse that right away. I mean, there'd be fucking warrants signed galore. There'd be warrants all over. Um, so we'll see, but I just think that bill's like a major. The government's supposed to work for the citizens, not the other way around. And that's the way it's supposed to be. The government works for us. The government answers to us. They're our workers. God damn it, Joe Biden works for the people. That's what it's supposed to be. I don't know how things work in there, but Ireland's government is kind of the same, a little different. There's differences. Well, it's major differences, but the government is supposed to work for the people. That's what it's supposed to be. And the moment that you start letting them take your rights, they're just going to take more and more and more. They're going to want more and more, and the less you're going to be in control of that situation. So yeah, it is worrying. But all right, boys, it's been an hour. The sun's coming up. I got to get ready for work. So I'm pretty much what I'm going to do with these now, especially these lives, whenever we go into all these subjects. I'm going to download the whole video, and I'm going to just break it up into pieces. And, later on, if somebody doesn't want to fucking listen to me talk for a whole hour, you want to listen to me talk about one subject, you can go directly to that subject. And I'll make a whole playlist, or I'll make a new playlist for that one, and I'll just call it like live shorts or something like that. So yeah, this bill's a bad thing. So whatever you guys can do to stop that fucking bill, stop it. Don't let them take more of your rights. The more rights they take, the more they take away from you. And the government's supposed to work for you, not the other way around. You don't work for the fucking government. Fuck those guys. They shouldn't be able to take right after right away from you. Haven't they taken enough? You pay taxes, don't you? You have to fucking give them money, or else you go to jail. If you're fucking paying these guys, they should be working for you. And they should answer to you, and don't let them fucking take your rights away, man, because they'll take more and more and more, and it'll just get worse and worse, and then we'll all end up like Russia. So you guys stay safe out there. I'll see you guys later. We have a big live on Friday, a lot of UFO news, but I don't want to get on that because you guys know I get on a tangent about the UFO shit. But you guys stay safe. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you guys on Friday. Friday is going to be a late one. I wanted to do it in the morning, but I'm going to wait because I heard there's supposed to be a new UFO video dropping on Friday. So I want to wait to see what happens with that. So Friday, the live will probably be at like midnight your guys' time, maybe 1 a.m. your guys' time. Depends on when I get home. I've been getting home pretty late. But I'll see you guys later. See you guys on Friday. Stay safe. Take it easy. I'm out.
All right, lads. We're finished listening to his shit. What's the story with G? Anyone want to go live? Into the chat now there. Well, fucking the invite. See, Steve don't go straight and hiding. What's the story, Celtic? What no limerick? I don't pay tax, sorry. Right, the link is up there, lads. If you want to join, if not, I'm gonna fuck off. Right now, Steve should jump on, like. There's no link. There is a link. It's gonna same as the other night. Check it out, see if there's a link up now. 1, 2, 3. If there's no link, I'll kill it there and I'll rejoin again. There's no grab it. Okay, no, there's no link. Alright, Steve, come here. I'm gonna kill it there. I'm gonna put it back up and put a new link up. And if you don't join, you're on your bollocks. Talk to you in a minute, lads.